That was kind of warm on my face. I thought I was gonna light my eyelash on fire. We're gonna set the mood, shall we? By the way, I make these 100% soy candles. This was Garden Sweet Pea. It wasn't my favorite scent, but I made myself a candle because I fucked it up. So I decided to keep it. So yeah, it actually smells really good. It's one of my favorites now because actually, like, you know, like when you're like okay on a scent and then when you actually burn it, you're like, oh, I kind of like the way that smells. It fits the vibe. If you burn a lot of sage, it's in your ballpark there. So all the good things. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another sit down video. In today's episode, we're gonna do a little story time. You see, what had happened was last week I missed an upload. Oops, wouldn't be the first time, probably won't be the last. I got very burnt out, and for those of you who are not new, you know I've been struggling with my mental health. You know I've been struggling with the journey, following my dreams, finances, all of the really good fun stuff that stresses you out and makes you wonder why the hell you ever wanted to be an adult, but here we are. You know, art was my first love when I was a kid. Until I got older and my mom passed away, and then I stopped doing art, and then I wanted to be a model. Like, ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a model, and I've mentioned this a few times before. I'll do like a separate video on my modeling journey. It's gonna take some fine tuning because I want to like be very due diligent and just very specific on how I want to, you know, portray it or have the mood of the video. There's like a certain vibe I want, if that makes any sense. And I want to piece it together because I want to touch on all points, but it was back in 2018, I would have been 24. God, time flies when you're having fun. When I was 24, I moved out to New Jersey to pursue my dreams of becoming a high fashion model. That is pre-tattoos. I only had this one. Modeling industry was very, not so nice, to put it in a nice way. Very cutthroat. Not everybody, there were a lot of nice people that I ran into, but I've developed some tough skin. And that's what this piece is inspired by. Well, before I actually moved out there, I made the decision to like take the leap or whatever. Sorry, I'm distracted. I took a trip out to New York and I was like, I loved it. I fell in love with New York City. I fell in love, especially, yeah, Manhattan, Central Park, all that. Like, it was just a vibe when I was there. And so I decided to move out there, pursue my dreams. I stayed out there for about 10 months until I ran out of money. So, you know, in all honesty, I don't see a lot of girls that came from nothing. Like, my family is not made of money. Like, I never came from money. Everything that I've built and created in my life is self-made. And that came from watching my parents work very hard. My dad had several jobs. He had his own business too. Like, my dad did a lot of things when we were kids. And then at the farm, like, my mom would bottle raise babies. That's a whole nother story for another day. And so it was very hard for me to make it out in that industry, but I went for it. I moved out there. My confidence really wasn't there. I didn't. I lacked the self-confidence. I was going through a lot of mental health issues when I moved out there. I actually quit medication cold turkey. It's not something that I recommend for anybody to do because I had extremely terrible, like, I had really bad withdrawal symptoms. I had like the brain shakes. It felt like my brain was literally inside of my head shaking in there. I was very paranoid. I was really like, I would get really sweaty, I'd get hot, and then I'd get really cold, and I was in bed for like a week because I was almost scared of myself. I was like, what is going on with me? I feel like I'm dying, but then I had to like keep my composure because I had a job. But it was very difficult for me to make it out there, but this is what the painting is about. This is an 8x10. All of my work is acrylic. I'm not into oils yet. I say yet because I don't want to like check that off of my list and be like, well, I'm never gonna do oils, because there might come a day where I'm like, hey, I want to shift mediums and try something different, because that's what artists do. You know, it's kind of like a musician, and people get so upset with them. They'll have like their music, you know, like Paramore for instance, or like Linkin Park. They'll have their music out there into the world, and then they make this shift because they want to change, and everyone's like, this music sucks, blah blah blah, and they get so much hate from people. And they're just trying to like move into their fluidity. That's not a word, I know it's not, but they're trying to be fluid with their art, and they're trying to like put themselves out there more, try different things, see, like, try different vibes, different approaches to things. And I think a lot of times what people really misinterpret, and I think people forget a lot of times, is that in every season of life, you're a different person. I'm a different person than I was 5 years ago. Like, it's a complete 180. When I was 26, it was right before I bought this house when I was 26. Like, I was saving my money, like didn't have a pot to piss in really, and I was saving my money to get this place or whatever, and that's like after I moved back from the East Coast. I forgot where I was going with that. Excuse me, I had to take a sip of my tea. I forgot where the hell I was even going with that. But when I moved back, I felt like a loser. I was like, I have nothing going for me. I never talked about this before. This is a whole nother story of my life. I went to college for my bachelor's degree while I was out on the East Coast, so I had a full-time job. I was going to school full-time for my bachelor's degree in business management, and I gave up my social life, my weekends. My neighbors were like super noisy. They had like 6 people living in a 1-bedroom apartment. That's pretty typical out there because the cost of living is so expensive. It was a whole ass family. It was a whole family living there, kids going up and down the stairs screaming when I was trying to do my homework. I was just like, the heck, you know? And so when I came back, I was like, when I moved, so I flew home to visit, and then I was like, oh my god, I miss it. And I made the decision to move back because things just weren't, you know, working out in New York. And I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna move home, I'm gonna buy a house, I'm gonna be myself, I'm gonna get covered in tattoos like I've always wanted to do, I'm gonna color my hair again, I'm gonna put my piercings back in. Like, I was plain Jane when I was in the modeling industry. Like, I can't even hardly see my natural color. It's in there somewhere. It's like right at the roots. But I'm a brunette. And I had long brown hair at the time. I had just one tattoo, and all my piercings were pretty much taken out because that's what the modeling industry wanted me to do. So, moral of what I'm trying to say is, like, 5 years ago, I was in a completely different space. And even 2 years ago, even 1 year ago, like last year, at this time, it kind of in the middle of the summer of doing art markets after I left my corporate 9-to-5 job. I'm a different person, you know? Like, we change in every season. And, you know, when we're going after a dream, it's not easy. You know, you have this burning passion, right? It's like, there's something, you have like this fire under your ass, and you're like, I'm gonna do this thing. You have all this confidence, and you go after it, and sometimes years pass. And you're putting yourself out there, you're doing everything that the social media and content creators are. They're like, just start the YouTube channel, just do this, just do that, put yourself out there. And I'm not disagreeing whatsoever. I completely agree with that statement. But people will take it literally. I'm one of them. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna start my YouTube channel, and then a year later I'll probably blow up and go viral. I've created over 400 videos, over 300 long form videos. I had to check my math on this morning. I should tell you right now. Oh my god. See if it'll tell me. 308 long form videos. A few of them I do have hidden. They're private. They're like really old ones that like I don't really resonate with anymore. Maybe I'll put them out into the public one day. I'm not sure, but here we are, a year and 9 months later, and I've shared my journey. I've shared the good and the bad moments, and I've been very transparent about it. And there's a lot of people who are probably like, you know, unsubscribe, because there's been quite a few people who've unsubscribed to my channel. Maybe I offended somebody, maybe I said something, maybe I was too emotional. But I'm a firm believer that every single thing that I'm doing and every single thing that I've gone through in my life is gonna propel me in the future. There's gonna be one day where I hit on the thing and it's like, it just takes off, because I thought that modeling went down the drain. I was like, well, what a waste of my time. You know, that's what I thought when I moved back. I was like, well, I tried that thing. Well, still to this day, I'm 31 years old and I'm still getting booked for hair jobs. Like, the reason why my hair is usually always different lately, especially lately the last 2 videos, is because there's been, you know, people in the hair industry who want to work with me. And so something that I started when I was 19 years old is benefiting me in the future. Am I, you know, on cover girl? No, but I've made it on a cover of a magazine. I've made it in an editorial spread in a bridal magazine in the past because I put in the effort and I worked for it. I had this burning passion within myself, and You know, whether it's modeling or art or creating videos like YouTube videos or doing photography, it's all stuff that's creative. It's all stuff that I enjoy doing. And one day, all of these things that I'm working on in the background, because just think about it, you know, there's so many people who quit something, they're like, well, I'm just not good at that anymore. Well, throughout the years, if you keep doing all of them skills, you're going to have this ripple effect and you're going to get really good at all these things. And people are like, well, you should just focus on one thing. If you're anything like me, that doesn't work for you. My brain cannot just focus on one thing. If I just did YouTube videos and I didn't do art, what would I film and talk about? You know what I'm saying? Like, most of my YouTube videos, like, I'll have my family in there here and there, but most of my content is me talking about art, is me talking about mental health awareness, is me sharing my story and not trying to stay stuck in the past, but I'm sharing like my healing with you guys, and I'm being very vulnerable and open about all of these parts, because there's gonna come a day where I can look back and be like, holy crap, like I kept going and I kept my eyes fixated on that, you know, on the horizon, even though there's times where I've been depressed, even though there's moments where I went into deep, dark holes and I've like basically thrown a tantrum on the internet. It's because I'm human. We all are. And I think that it's really funny because the people who want to judge you are the people that are hypocrites. Because, you know, people are like, well, have you ever thought of going to therapy? Have you ever thought of getting on medication? Have you ever thought, no, Susan, I did over 4 years of therapy and tried 6 different meds, but I've never thought of that. I think the reason why, and people try to come from a good place, they really do, but sometimes, you know, we're human. We don't think before we talk sometimes. I think the reason why that upsets me so much is because just because you're having a hard time in life doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. I don't know who needs to hear that today. I know that this video is what this painting is about, but everything that I'm saying is about following your dreams. And there's a lonely and very isolating period, and I've heard a lot of like very famous people, or I'm spitting on you, good lord, good thing you can't get that, you'd be all like you have like a shower. Hopefully you didn't take one today, because I just gave you one, so. But there's a lot of very successful people out in the world where they've made something of themselves, and they're like, yeah, you're gonna go through the lonely period, you're gonna go through the isolating period, and that's what I've been stuck in the last year and a half, especially since I quit my corporate job. And I've been fighting back and forth on getting a 9-to-5 job or even a part-time job again, and it's not that I'm lazy or entitled, but, you know, when you're trying to make something work, you're investing all of this time and energy into your business, you kind of start to lose a little bit of momentum because you get a little bit burnt out. And that's where you reach this moment of like, hey, do I quit or do I continue doing this thing? You know? So that's kind of where I'm at. With modeling, I never quit. I just quit the area or that industry, like the high fashion world, because I just didn't really fit in over there. In Minneapolis, I was too high fashion. In New York City, I was too commercial. So I was too this or too that. So I left. You know? And I think a lot of times when you keep working on those things or working on photography, you say you're talented at a bunch of different things. Those skills are going to help propel you in the future. And what I wanted to touch on the college thing is when I moved back, I'm going to go into depth in this in a different video. When I moved back home from Jersey to, you know, buy a house and graduate college and get my bachelor's degree, I found out on graduation day that they didn't have me in the bachelor's program. I was in the associates, so I went through the associates program twice. I gave up my social life, and I just remember feeling so angry about that. And then there's a bunch of other stuff that happened. I ended up at a temp agency, got this job writing instructions for an assembly line. Something I never did, but like I had experience in manufacturing. I'm a very hands-on person. That's like, I'm a very visual learner. That's how I learn the best, is watching people do things. A lot of neurodivergent people are. Like, I have to watch somebody do it. You could tell me until you're blue in the face and I could read something, but unless I see a visual, like pictures or a demonstration, it doesn't really register in my head. So yeah, I was the first person in my family that went to college, and I didn't read into depth in my paperwork because I didn't know what I was signing. I didn't have any guidance in that department, and I was young, you know? And I take partial responsibility for it. I just remember being so angry. So anyway, back to what I was saying, I go kind of back and forth a lot of times. I put my head down, I worked my ass off at this place, and I got pulled into the office one day, and I was like, oh my god, I'm getting fired. And it was like the guy, so I was sitting next to this guy's office. I didn't know who he was. I knew what his name was because obviously he had his little plaque on his wall, and I was like, well, he seems important. He had that demeanor about him, but I don't get intimidated often, and I wasn't very intimidated by him. I was very nice to him. I was like, hi, good morning, or whatever, because that's who I am. This guy didn't intimidate me, but people were terrified of him. Pulls me in his office with this other lady. She looked like she had authority too. And they're like, hey, Tyler. And I'm like, ah, shit, they know my name. Dang. And I was like, hey. And they looked at me and they're like, how are you today? The first thing that came out of my mouth was, oh my god, am I getting fired? And they laughed and they're like, no, we didn't. We just wanted to ask you, like, you know, we want to promote you. We have this position. We were wondering if you were interested in applying for it. I got the job that I went to school for, but I didn't have the degree for, because I went there, I showed up every single day, and I was consistent. I put my head down. Did I end up loathing this job entirely and it ended up kind of shredding my mental health? Yes, but the fact is, at the moment, those funds helped me get to where I'm at today. That's the money that I used to invest into my art business. And I worked very hard at my job, because when I'm an employee, I bust my butt. Like, I take that stuff seriously. I'm a good employee. I want to go there. I want to do a good job, even if I hate my job. Because that's what they're paying me for. That's how I've always been in my life. So, needless to say, big city, big dreams. Because you can have big dreams. And there's a lot of people in life who will make you feel guilty for having big dreams. They'll make you feel like you're crazy or you're delulu. I told my friend Lisa this like 2 months ago. She's like, I don't know, but it's kind of delulu. I said, it's only delulu until it works. And it's the God's honest truth. And I feel like the more that I become myself and the more that I'm standing in my authenticity, there's more people who are drawn to me. The right people are gravitating towards me in my life. There's just been so many shifts and changes in my life since I moved back from New York, but that's what this painting is about. It's about persevering, and you know, you have this passion, this fire, and then one day it feels like the fire's consuming you. And it's a lot sometimes. Following your dreams or chasing your dreams is not for the weak. There have been a lot of times where I felt like giving up, but I keep going. I allow myself to feel those emotions. I don't push them away. And I talk about it because there's gonna come a day where I do make it somewhere and people can look back on my videos and be like, wow, she kept going. Even though she was sad, even though she wanted to quit, even though she got freaking 2025 was the worst start to the year with it raining and the weather just sucking and the economy kind of taking a crap after I quit my corporate job. Like, you can't control these things, and had I waited around, I'd probably just be bitter and miserable at a job that I still hated. So this is the burning passion, and a lot of times it takes time. I've been pursuing art. I started creating again in 2019. Shortly after I moved back. That's what ignited my healing journey, and it's taken me about 6 years to create all of this, create my YouTube channel, create all of these videos, create all of it. All my art, all the effort, all the work that I put into it, and the only way that it's gonna fail is if I'm the one that's responsible for that, is what I'm trying to say. And the only way that it's gonna fail is if I stop. Because I know from being at all of them jobs that I've been at in my life, that showing up says something about who you are. And if you're listening to this today, excuse me, you might think that I'm some sort of hypocrite, but I'm a human. I share my dark moments and my fears and my frustrations on my channel because I don't want it to seem like my life is something that it's not, because that's not who I am. I say it like it is. And maybe people don't like me for it, so be it. Because you gotta be yourself. You gotta follow what makes you happy. I had this conversation with a girl that I went to high school with last weekend, and I haven't seen this girl in 15 years, and it was someone that wasn't too nice to me, so to speak. But I gave her a chance, and she's telling me that she wants to pivot careers and stuff, and I looked at her, she's like, well, she's like, that's not the life I want, blah, 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 everyone wants this for me. I said, who cares? Pivot. Quit the thing that you don't like to do. and I was giving her ideas. And sometimes God will place you in certain places to kind of ignite that hope into people. And I think that that's the big reason why I get so frustrated sometimes, is because I'm not blaming anybody, but one of my biggest frustrations in life is the people around me being like, oh, that sucks. Like, yeah, it sucks, but like, can you be like, okay, it's gonna work out. Like, you got this, Tyler. And I get that sometimes, but sometimes it helps, you know? And so if you are one of my friends and there's a few of you who've sat in the dark, who have like kind of lit a path. You've been a light in my life and you've encouraged me. I have one friend in particular that's very special to me. We're very similar. He's a good soul, you know, and sometimes it just takes that one person that's like, hey, keep going, you got this, you know? So if you're watching this video today, big city, big dreams, nothing's too big. There's no such thing. Shoot for the moon. I'm not saying it's easy. Sometimes it is for people, sometimes it's not, if you're anything like me, but I'm just being bold and honest about it, and that's the story behind this piece. I don't have any prints or stickers of this. I will have some in the near future. It's very cool. Give you kind of a close-up here. It does have a matte finish on it. Like I said, it's an 8x10 canvas. This is available on my website. It's www.rockenbakken.com. Thank you so much for listening. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you made it till the end. And until next time, just peace the F out.